Good morning. Happy, what is it day? Tuesday. Looking at the clock, feels like it's later. Hey, great week ahead. We got the Pro Farmer Crop Tour, and that's a lot of fun to watch. Had a little bit of disappointing yields in Ohio and South Dakota. If we're going to have a record crop, we're going to need big yields everywhere. We're still not to the finish line yet. The boys up north need some more heat. We need GDUs to finish the crop. Has a lot of potential. Got up early, went and worked on the back porch. It was cold back there. A nice cold August morning. Whew, what great weather to finish up these crops. All right, let's take it to LaSalle Street and we'll run real quick through here and give you the prices. Corn down 1 penny. Beans coming back day 2. No beans up 6. Meal up 53. Oil up 3. Wheat border trade up 2. KC up 4. Hard red spring, a lot of pressure there as harvest wraps up in the northern plains, unchanged. Live cattle down 100, feeders down 120. Hogs, I don't even know. I forgot to change my quote board again on the hogs. Hogs down 100 also. Let's take it to Wall Street. Gold up 26, silver up 55, 2s, 5s, 10s, 30s, all up on the day. Means yields are going down. Crude oil up 63, natural gas down 33. Kind of makes sense if it's that cold this morning. Dow Jones down 36, NASDAQ up 34, S&P's up 8, Bitcoin up 1,800. And with that, Dr. Copper's up a little bit. Let's bring him in. Brady Huck, not sure we're going to have a long show because there's a lot of news happening in the outside. I think if you get on Twitter and just follow pound PFTOUR24, I think that'll get you the Pro Farmer Crop Tour. And that's good stuff, Brady. I think that's real good listening and watching and everything else. What do you got on the docket, sir?
Yeah, it's a fun time of year watching the farm tour. Got some stuff there. We got some graphics we'll flash up, just kind of review. Maybe we'll start throwing those up and review what we did. You did a premium special on it last night, breaking stuff down. That was good stuff. But yeah, South Dakota corn yield, 156.51 versus 157.42, showing down a little bit versus their year ago stuff on the South Dakota corn. You got to take these numbers with a grain of salt. I always like, comparing pro farmer numbers versus pro farmer numbers, not pro farmer numbers versus USDA numbers. And I think you hit on that yesterday with the premium content, talking about, the history of underestimating the corn crop, Tommy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we should go back and look at where corn was 1 year ago. I remember that gap open that Sunday night. I want to say we opened, if memory serves me right, we opened like maybe 14 higher in beans, 8 higher in corn, and we traded off ever since then. I don't know if we ever came back from those levels. I can go back and look, or we could have research look. But I remember it was a gap and go, and it didn't take long to fill that back in. So bullish news on this is typically sold as those last bushels get cleaned up here. Any news in cattle?
Oh, on the cattle side of things, it's the supply story, still there. There's sufficient supply though, Tommy. The weights are up, slaughter's down a little bit. There's some pessimism on the economy and the demand, future demand. The thing that, I'm watching in cattle and paying attention to is just the funds they're not building premium into those markets. You rewind the clock 4 or 5 months ago in the feeder cattle front of things, there was $20 premiums in the deferred months versus the current index. And we're not seeing that today. It's actually a discount, which makes it difficult if you're, a hedger or risk manager to go out there and, it's selling into an inverse or hedging into an inverse essentially. And it's really tough mentally to go do that, especially if you have a bullish bias. But I don't know. These high prices gear high prices. You're going to have increased imports, decreased exports. And, eventually the consumer is going to make choices if prices stay too high too long, and we're putting more pounds on animals. We got a cattle on feed report later this week, Tommy, and we will jump into those numbers and see what gets printed on that front. Eyes will be on those numbers.
Sounds good. Not a lot of headlines overnight. I did watch a tiny bit of the Democratic National Convention, and I went to bed early. Full disclosure, I went to bed really early last night, and I switched the channels back and forth. I put Fox News on. I put CNN. I even put MSNBC on, but I thought my house was going to get struck by lightning, so I shut that off. But it's interesting to watch them talk. I love it. I noticed some friends I have at Facebook. Their kids are there. I don't know that last night was. I guess President Joe Biden spoke late. I didn't see it, but he at this point he should have been sleeping. That's all I could say. That was a little late to keep him up. but I heard he didn't give the best speech ever, and it didn't all make sense. And everything has happened politically. Speaking of not making sense politically, I did talk to a client this morning and
Mhm.
said, who's worse for soybeans? And I said, well, you do know that President Donald Trump likes to talk tough with China, and you do know that the you know president, what how would you say it, that both candidates, right? You have one candidate who talks tough with China. You have one candidate who wants to stop free markets and just say we're going to put like we're going to something can't go higher than this.
Feelings, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, and
Limitations.
I don't know. That probably wasn't the best speech. Matter of fact, I heard it knocked her ratings down. It just, there's a lot of money that comes out of Wall Street, and if the cure to everything is just to make prices and suck volatility out of the markets, it would be interesting. Hey, if you can go full screen on Brady, I think I saved a snap of something that was really good, and if I could read it, but go full screen on Brady and go give us a little chatter on some other markets. You did have that
Something
pie
else.
chart. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, but I gotta find this because it was too good. I have it right here, I think.
All right, we'll dig down. I got we'll flip on the Ohio corn numbers and talk about the pro farmer data there. Very similar in line on the yield estimate versus a year ago there on Ohio corn. Um, grain length, ear count, you dig into some of those types of deals, but the methodology of how they get to their estimates. Back in my agronomy days, getting corn yield estimates was you actually had a good shot at doing that, but the beans were really, really tough. It seemed like to always get a consistent bean estimate number. Ohio bean number, um, you know, what is that, down versus a year ago, but up versus a 3-year average on Ohio beans. Looking at South Dakota soybean data, up 1.27% versus a year ago, and up versus the 3-year average too there. So pro farmers putting in some big numbers, and like we talked about earlier, Tommy, and that chart from Nate Mangold that just looks at the history of corn and bean and the Pro Farmer Tour versus the USDA final. They've got a history of underestimating the crop. So, I always wonder, are we in the business of selling newspapers? And if we want to tell people what they want to hear, sometimes, yeah, that helps sell you some newspapers. But I don't
Yeah.
know if everybody wants to hear that.
No, all right, I got the pilot. This one's too good to leave out, but I don't want you to see my face while I read this. These are the isms, okay?
Okay.
Socialism. You have 2 cows, you give one to your neighbor. Communism. You have 2 cows, give both cows to the government, and they give you some milk. Fascism. You have 2 cows, you give all the milk to the government, and the government sells it. There's one I don't even want to read to you because it's pretty aggressive. And there's another one. Um, you have 2 cows, keep both cows, shoot the government agent, and steal another cow. That's anarchism. And then there's capitalism. You have 2 cows, you sell one, and you buy a bull. And those are all the isms. And I saw that the other day.
That's
And
how I learned, Tommy. I love that. It's
yeah,
good
that
stuff.
came out after her speech. Someone's like, oh, we should go back and learn history of all the isms.
Mm-hmm.
And I think she crossed out of the capitalism one and went to another category. So it was rhetoric. I mean, if you take every comment someone says during a campaign and take it as it's serious and it's going to happen,
Mm-hmm.
and what's wild about social media is they can tear you apart. There was also one other picture. This one's too good to leave out too, since I just in a mood. But it's a picture of uh, it's a wolf giving a speech to a bunch of sheep, and it says, "Once elected, I will be a vegetarian."
Oh gosh, yeah,
Yeah,
that's a good
I
one
gotta
too.
show you that one. That one's too good not to share. So
Yeah.
that's what we got. Those are my opinions, and thank you for tuning in. But you could take that as a rancher. I mean, can you see that wolf going up and giving a speech to all those sheep? That's
Oh
kind of
god.
what I feel we're going
Yeah.
through right now.
Well, when you relate it back to livestock, Tommy, I mean, that's just my department. When you talk about sheep or you talk about cattle, I get that. I can relate to that and understand that. Absolutely. Yeah. No. Yeah. Vote me in November. I promise I'll change everything
You ever
for you and
think,
make life
like,
better.
are you on any school boards or anything politically?
Not if I have to be. Try to avoid that, I guess.
Yeah, I've
I've
never
been
run
lucky
for
so
office,
far.
and I probably never will. Just running for my life. Brady Huck, we hey Jojo, that phone's ringing. If you can get it, that's that one you got to get for me, okay? Thanks. The We got one on line one. Thanks for calling. Slow news day, Pro Farmer Crop Tour, Democratic convention. We hope everyone stays safe in Chicago. they got the town on lockdown. There's a lot of protesters. I talked to some clients about it. They're like, "Who's mad at who?" I said, "I think it goes back a few thousand years. Might want to study the Bible a little." And there's some old school upsettedness. It's not just this year, folks. There's a lot of animosity out there. We are seeing some bids in wheat. Hard red spring wheat was down 5 last night. It's up now. That's good. And markets are turning around a little bit. They're turning around so much that corn's at 3.99. Take away your basis. Nothing got better. Things got a little less worse the last few days. Keep an eye on that cattle. I want to see if they come back at the end of the day. I don't have a lot to talk about. We have one comment. Premium. Go ahead, sir.
Jackson Hole Fed meeting, Jackson Hole. That's going to be something to watch later in the week. All our eyes are on. Got the DNC meeting. That's a big meeting. You got the Pro Farmer Tour. What are they going to find? But some other things like Jackson Hole. That meeting. What some of those little clues that can be a big event for the bigger macro picture of things that are happening. And then the other thing that's on my radar, Tommy, is Ukraine and Russia. There's some dryness. I think 80% of Ukraine corn crop is drier than normal the last 30 days. 85% of drier than normal the last 60 days. So sometimes there's these other things that are happening under the surface, under the radar. The derecho in Iowa a couple of years ago that just catapulted this market and started things off. This is that time of year where you're staring at one thing and hyper focused on one thing, and then out of left field something comes and catches your marketing plan off guard. That's what I'm watching out for with my customers right now, Tommy G.
Absolutely. Well, we got a little bit to the markets. We got a lot of folks, all eyes on Chicago. We got Jackson Hole. We got the crop tour. There's a lot of news. It's a fun time to look at the internet. I wish we could filter the internet. Like there's some stuff on there I don't want to see. You can, but then if you
that's
filter,
that's what Facebook's for, is for filtering. They'll filter it for you too, right, Tommy?
Well, they will. We're probably being filtered right now. Listen, I need to go put a filter in the coffee pot and get a nice cup of coffee. Questions, comments, drop them. We'll get to you later. Premium yesterday was about the crop tour. It's fun. I've been on it. It's those folks work so hard. Big hats off to all the folks, east, left, right, whatever. If you want premium content, we start you off with a nice email at 5:30 in the morning. And then we have actionable text. We get you out a little video every day, sometimes 6 days a week, most times 6 days a week. Sometimes we get more out. If there's a lot of things happening, we jump back in it. But not every show needs to be a long one. I actually need to get back to work. And with that, how wheat's done? Is that correct?
Yeah, wheat harvest wrapped up. If you're at the elevator, you're paying storage if you haven't had it sold or you don't have a basis contract. So, some costs are adding up if you're still long old crop wheat. Managing my customer stuff through the call ownership type stuff makes a lot more sense to me. Getting some eyes on new crop stuff too. I love this graphic here. Let's talk about this one a little bit. Quick. We got this one blasted out. A poll on Ag Web about how much ownership of old crop corn and beans specifically do you have? And 83% of farmers still had 25%. There's there's a little sliver of 10% that had quarter to half of their old crop corn still ownership, and not kind of mixed on whether they're going to sell it. So some birthdays out there for some bushels on corn and beans. Looks like beans maybe a little more in that 0 to 25% sold, or all sold up on beans. But corn looks like there's maybe some of that out there still. Interesting, Tommy.
Yeah. I will wrap it with this. If your big hope is this week that Pro Farmer's going to find out that the crop is just a smidge not as awesome, that's like being excited that you only lost, like one finger or something. I mean, there's a big crop, maybe not the right analogy, but for farming, a lot of people have lost stuff, but like there's a big crop out there. They're arguing about such a small amount. And so any little bit they find that's not out there in that prior chart that Brady talked about, that's the extra that is out there. And typically these market rallies are meant for selling. Be nice to see some short covering rally. I'm all for being bulled up, but it's been pretty expensive. I did listen to a podcast before this show, and I think they went through all the numbers that if you put a bushel on DP of how less money you had, and it was embarrassing. And I know that there's a lot of people out there watching, listening, who have bushels like that, where they have been paying storage since harvest, and an incredible amount of money was lost on that bushel. I think if they do it for one more year, the elevator will call you and say, "Hey, that's it. Thanks for playing," right? And the wild thing about that is the second you bring that bushel to the elevator, they're usually moving it. They're putting it on a train, a plane, or something. It's a boat. It's turned into ethanol. Not a lot of planes it's put on, but
Planes moving grain. Yeah.
yeah, it is moving nonetheless. And so it's the math of this harvest. If we could, go from there, that'd be great. All right, we're going to wrap it up. And with that, we will see you all tomorrow. Be Huck, Dodge City, Kansas, Tom Grisafi, Valparaiso, Indiana. We will see you tomorrow.
Thanks for joining us. We're here every day, 9 a.m. Central. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We'll see you next time.